Hi, everybody. How are you guys? Woo! We are at another. Sorry. We're at another week for Stay Lit. I'm going big with the earrings today. I hope everybody's had a wonderful month. So I'm doing things a little bit differently this time. I Skyped our author, Miss Annie Hartnett, and so I'm gonna play the recording for you guys to get a chance to hear what we talked about. I hope that you all got your copies of Rabbit Cake. Be sure again to send me your IG handles because I didn't forget about y'all. I'm still gonna do my drawing. So please just keep sending me the info because you never know which one you might get picked to get. So send me your IG handle once you're finished watching the interview. And then, of course, stay tuned for next month's author. I'm going to keep you guys posted on that. And, yeah, that's all I've got. Oh, no, it's not. So, because I didn't do my little Stay Lit intro. So, for those of you, it's your first time watching, I grew up as an big reader. Like, I was all about the books. I was the kid under the covers with the flashlights. I even was so bad, sometimes I would be next to my nightlight because I was not about the dark. And so I'd be next to my nightlight with my little book, trying to hurry up and scramble and get back in the bed before I got caught. All the way through high school. And then, of course, went away to university and, got textbooks and assigned reading and all this other stuff. And I was like, you know what? Reading is for the birds. I'm not about it. I don't want to do this anymore. And I really got away from reading. And over the past couple of years, I was like, I don't read the way that I used to. And I really wanted to get back into that. And I knew that I needed accountabilities. And I wanted to be in a book club, but, nothing really worked with my schedule. And so I was like, well, there's got to be somebody else out there that wants to be in the book club, but that can't, make it to something that might be local. So I'm going to get online and start to read these books and talk about these books. And then I said, well, how cool would it be if the person that wrote the book talked about the book with me? I mean, who better to give insight into the characters, into the plot, into the who's and what's and why's of the book than the person that wrote it? And so through that, Stay Lit was born. And we had some phenomenal authors. And I'm really trying to grow as far as the recording and things like that because I've lost a couple of interviews that were so good. So I hate that if you guys missed that particular Stay Lit that you did not get a chance to see that. But we'll just have to bring them back so we can get them on again. But for this week, we're reading, that totally hit my glasses. We're reading this month, we're reading Rabbit Cake. And here's the interview. Woo!
Yeah, I don't know how to save it either.
Okay, let's see if you can see my face.
Oh, it says stay. Is this recording? Yeah.
Can you see me or did I go away?
I cannot see you.
Oh, poo!
Huh.
I wonder if it might do differently on my computer. So let me see if because I don't want to take up all of your time. Oh, how drafty. Okay, you know what? Let's keep going. Oh, I hate that you can't see me because I have such awesome facial expressions.
You do. That's true.
Oh, poo. Well, I will re-record my facial expressions and put them in so that you can
Okay.
see and experience the entirety of the situation. Okay, so I will jump right into questions. Oh, Grant. I will jump right into questions. So, what was your inspiration for picking such a topic? Death and grieving is really hard.
Yeah.
And so what made you decide that was the route that you wanted to take for you? Is this your first book?
It is my first book, yes.
Oh my goodness. So for your first book, for this to be your method, what kind of inspired that?
So I mean, I think that sometimes I don't know who said it, but someone smarter than me, said that, there's a saying about, you should write what you know, but someone else said you should write what you want to know. Which I think is a smart, do you know who said that?
No, but that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing. It's a good way to approach fiction. And so for me, I'm always like, I want to write about the things that I don't understand, that I would like to understand, or just things that haunt me, or so death, is one of those obvious, like haunts most people, but also not just death, but grieving someone who is, who, I was thinking, I did have a friend who lost a mom who was a really, really vibrant person. Right. And there was something, my mom is still alive. But there was something in that where I was kind of like, what is the world like for you? Oh, now I can see.
I'm back.
You're back.
Goofy and hit a button.
So what is the world like for, especially a little kid who's still forming herself, if she loses not only a mom, but a mom who is just larger than life, So, so that was sort of my beginning what if question. I also, I think the original inspiration before I was even starting asking that question, I have only sleptwalked one time.
No way.
I was in college, and I did not have the greatest time management skills in college, as most people don't. And I had been up for a whole week, and my friend had also been up for a whole week. We had been sitting in this room and just writing our thesis. And we both handed them in, like, we're done, send. I think the deadline hit, and it was just like, we gotta send, so we were done. And I said, all right, I'm going to bed. And she said, I'm going out. And I said, like, that is a terrible idea. It was a terrible idea. We had, cause I knew exactly how much sleep she had, cause it was exactly the amount of sleep I'd had all week. So I was like, well, I'm not your mother, so
right.
You go out. And so I went back to the room, and I went to college in upstate New York. So they would overheat the buildings because it was like so cold in the winter, but then it would be way too hot inside. So I would sleep with the window cracked just a little bit. And so I would wear this, and then it would get to be the perfect temperature in the bedroom. So, and I would wear this outfit to bed that was, flannel pajamas that I got from a thrift store. They had someone else's name on them, not even my name. And then, this hat that was it had ear flaps, and it was a powder blue hat, and it had little Playboy bunnies all over it.
No way.
And so I just like would tie it on my chin, and I would go to sleep. It was like the coziest little outfit. And I woke up in the middle of a frat party in that outfit, asking for my friend. And so it was horror. I mean, it was, it was fine. I was among friends, but it was very scary. I had walked, out of my dorm room, and also was wearing this outfit. But I was, and you'd suddenly appear somewhere, and I woke up while I was sleepwalking. So I was interested in sleepwalking because I am interested in this, like the things that really happen. So Rabbit Cake is not magical, but a lot of it is like almost magical.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I like that space of the real things that happen in our world that we're like, is that, like, does that really happen?
Honestly.
Yeah. And so sleepwalking is one of those things that's like, I believe your story, but also like there's part of me that's like, how and why? And so like, can you believe that really happens is what I'm usually sort of interested in. And so I, having had that experience, a couple years, I don't know how many years, several years before I started writing the book, I was like, sleepwalking, I want to find out what I can find out about it, and then sort of make it magical, like, even though it does sort of run in families, I wanted to make it like more of like a sort of a genetic disease that it is in the book than it really. I mean, the thing is that so I wanted to make it a disease. At the time, I don't think this was the case, but so my husband, he's a neuroscientist, so he studies the brain, and so when I'm writing about different elements like sleepwalking, I would always ask him like, could this work? Like what I want to invent? And he says what I think is the greatest thing you can say to a fiction writer is like, we understand so little about the brain, like you can make up whatever you want.
Wow. Oh.
So,
my heart is so, because I never would have imagined in the book, like you say, the sleepwalking thing, it's still in the book. I have never once in my life, and I don't know if it's just because the subject never came up, but I have never actually had a conversation with someone that can say, yo, I totally have sleptwalked at least once in my life. That is the most.
I bet if you asked 20 people tomorrow, you would get more stories.
Oh, I'm totally going to.
You should.
It's making it's making my heart absolutely pound because I cannot imagine. I know that there had been moments, just driving. And I know I didn't fall asleep, but there's been moments where I know I was on autopilot because I'm driving and then it's like, whoa, how in the world did I get all the way here? I know where I'm going. I know that, but I was not in the zone.
Yeah, I hate that feeling. Because you're like, do I really have, if I'm not here, do I really have the reflexes to then if something happens? Like, yeah, that always freaks me out.
Absolutely, like, no, I need to be in control of all of it. I need to know exactly what's going on. That's unreal. Okay, so I love that. Why did you make her so young? Because she was an itty bitty thing.
Yeah. She's, because some of that is the comedy of it, and also because, so for us, it is for adult readers, and I always knew it was for adult readers, pretty much. So I like the child narrator for adult readers because we get things that she does not. So things that are not necessarily funny, but they're funny coming from her.
Yes.
Because she understands part of them. And what's nice about the child narrator for something that has been explored many times, like grief, is in some ways it is new again because for her, she doesn't have, if one of us, if we had someone close to us who died, we'd have a lot of people saying, okay, this is what it's going to be like. This is what I went through. Even when you get any sort of diagnosis, you have cancer, somebody has cancer in your life, you get so much feedback from people who mean well, and but it's always like, how much feedback do I really need? Nobody knows what to tell Elvis because her friends haven't had the experience, and also most adults, she doesn't have an adult who lost in her life, doesn't have, I also lost my mom when I was that age. And even you wouldn't say that to a kid because it's not how we relate to children.
Exactly.
It would be crazy. So for her, it's like she is having this new experience that feels like it's the first time anyone has had this experience. So when you're trying to write about something that a lot of other people have written about, that's
a new angle.
Yeah, well, it makes it kind of fun because you can come up with sort of philosophies about things that feel new, at least to you when you're writing, and also that balance of that, like, humor and sort of her, like, weird realizations and just weird way of looking at the world. Because she does make sense of everything through animal facts. It's the way, like, she's
that's
very,
how she's able to cope with it.
Yes.
I love that. So, I'm going to ask you this one. Why did you, I really appreciate when authors leave the ending up to the reader, because there's so many, we can take it and that sort of sense of, personal satisfaction, like, okay, I can be resolved with the ending of the book because I'm gonna create the ending that I can deal with. So what was the what made you lean that direction with not giving us that resolution, like a definitive, hey, this is how it went down? Why did you leave it open for us to kind of, and there you go with it?
Yeah. Well, so for me, like when the book, I started the book as about sleepwalkers. And as I'm writing, it becomes more about the grief, but I didn't know that, I didn't know that until I'm quite in the middle of the book, sort of. And then I was like, well, what did really happen to the mom? I didn't know. And Elvis is investigating it. And, when I was thinking about sort of my own philosophies about death and, and dealing with the things that haunt me, as I was talking about before, like the feeling that I have always had when I lose somebody is like, what if it had been different? What if it had been, even with like my grandmother died a couple of years ago and she was, in her late 80s. She had a stroke. She went to the hospital and like was in the hospital for like several months.
Wow.
So there was doctors like telling us like this is what's happening. It wasn't like she had a stroke. Here's what's going on now. Like everything was like doctor is explaining, and also like she's in her 80s. Like people don't live forever, So then when she died, and they were like, and this is what happened. It was still like, well, if only things were just a little different. Like if she hadn't. So she was like up in New Hampshire with my parents, and it's like, well, what if she was at home? Like, and so you just like always want to rearrange something, even with someone who is 87.
Oh,
Which is just the feeling that, and especially, I've had it with younger people that, is really like, oh, okay, what if you didn't go to the lake that day or whatever?
Yeah.
Which is more like, but to have that feeling even with someone like my grandmother is like, oh, you always feel like, okay, if only things could have been different. So that's how Elvis is always going to feel. And that again, if she was older, she would understand. She has to, so I don't think that, but also nobody was there.
Right.
So I wanted to leave it into like, nobody knows what happened. Like, probably the best guess is the right guess, but nobody was there and nobody will ever know. And we will always wish that things were a little different. But also, some people do think that she did commit suicide. I don't think it's necessarily wrong that you would like, because there is the stuff there.
Right.
But we also don't know. So you're right. Like you can decide whatever you think really happened. If you believe the doctors, if you think there's someone in the book that murdered her, like it was all things I considered as I was writing it, but we don't know. It's something that is unsolved, because that is how I feel like most death, like my grandmother's death, which could not be more solved, does feel unsolved in some way. So that was sort of like the way that I came about it.
I love that, because that's as you were talking about it, I was thinking, because there's been some deaths here recently, and all I can think is, okay, well, again, if you hadn't been there, what would have been different? Maybe the same thing could have happened, or just understanding that there's always going to be a question. You're never going. It doesn't matter how much fact you have.
Yeah.
You're still gonna wonder. Okay, but is that really really what happened? It deepened my heart. How much time do I have? Because it's saying like 8:20.
I think you have another like 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Then I want to pick a good question. Okay, I like this one. Why did you have Elvis carry guilt for stuff that was happening, only to find out later on that it wasn't actually a secret.
Yeah, so she feels guilty about the things. I mean, I don't know if we're giving away.
No.
We're not giving away. Well, we did just give away the end.
Yeah, I guess maybe so.
Yeah.
Oh, drat.
Well, we'll keep the other part a secret, I guess. She feels guilty about, things that, so my part of what I wanted to explore with the book with the child narrator is she's at the age, or a little younger than the typical age, but she's advanced,
Yes.
where you discover that your parents are people too. They're not parents. I mean, they're not these perfect people, and that they are complicated, and that they do make not even mistakes, but they do things that are selfish.
Right.
And that they have their own interests, and that they have their own lives. And so I did not want, her mom to become, her mom was this big person, this big force. I did not want her mom to become, a perfect person in death. Because, so I wanted her to, which is something that happens too, is, people die and we remember them as only oh, weren't they the most generous person? It's like, well, they were
they had their
generous. And so for, I think, to lose someone at that age when you still think when I was, I remember when I was in elementary school, I thought my mom just was the greatest human being alive. And she is in some ways, but, I also think that, you learn that somebody is a person. And so I wanted Elvis to have that sort of realization, and some of that had to happen after death because she wasn't quite there yet. She didn't have a reason to really look at her mom that way until she sees what she sees, and then
concepts that and that's why I love speaking to the author, because those kind of things didn't come up to me.
Well, you hopefully are just enjoying the story, and the book came out a year and a half ago, and so it's this weird. You write the story, and that's when you're really just experiencing the story, most similar to when you're reading it. And then you think about, as you're editing it, you're like, why did I do the things I did? And then you're putting them, you're cutting it up, and that's when you're sort of making, not necessarily a point, but figuring out why you think the things that you think, or the characters think the things they think. And then you spend, more than a year talking about it. So then you think the things that you thought even stronger than it's just kind of a funny thing. So
yeah, it's, my parents used to tease us because we love the Andy Griffith Show. And so we watched Andy Griffith to death. And so now when we watch it, we're super critical, because we notice everything, and we can say, oh, well, this is after so-and-so had a stroke, or this is after this, and this character comes back, So I totally get that.
Yeah. You get, you get really close to it in a new way. Yeah.
You learn something new every time you pick it up. Okay. I'm going to give you one more. Oh, this is so hard. Okay. This is so hard. Okay, should I ask a question about Boomer, or should I ask a question about Vanessa?
Nobody ever asked me about Vanessa.
Oh, okay. Then I'll do Vanessa. So, I guess the main thing is, Vanessa is an older character, who comes into the story after some things have gone on with Lizzie. So what was the whole purpose of bringing her? And then, she becomes a really, nice character in the book. So what was the interjection of Miss Vanessa?
Yeah, when people do ask me about Vanessa, people like Vanessa, which I'm very glad about, because she's, she's an important character to me, and she's a new she becomes a member of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Vanessa was originally someone I was just like, well, Lizzie had a roommate, what was her life there? And that was the original, first scene. And then, the first scene, and Vanessa becomes, she shows up as one thing and becomes something else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I first wanted to give Lizzie a confidant. That was the original, because Lizzie has alienated her friends. And so originally it was like, well, Lizzie needs a friend. And then as I was figuring out who Vanessa was, I was like, oh, she's actually she's got her things, but she also has a background that most of it, I wrote more of her history than ended up in the book because I didn't have room to explain all of her stuff. And it's hinted at the things with her dad and her mom died but I also needed somebody who would be a reliable adult character, even though she has her things and in some ways is unreliable, but she's a good listener and she's a good friend and she shows up when people need her to show up and she's also looking for a family and, she comes into this family that has room for more people and who take her in, but also she really helps them. So I don't know. She's just, she was also another, I wanted all the characters to be okay in the end. And she was another way of a character who had been through the ringer, had bad things happen to her, but with the things that, the Babbitt family offers her and her own sort of strength and, she's able to be okay. I wanted you to feel like she's okay at the end and that she's got a place to live and people that care for her. So she was came from a lot of different things, but I also needed somebody to be there when Lizzie left. Mm-hmm. And Lizzie's not, Lizzie is Lizzie. She's never going to be a great listener, so I needed another kind of big sister character who could step up for Elvis and be I see who you are. And,
yes. Oh, I like I said, it was not a book that the whole time I was completely thrown off. Whoa, where did that come from? And I totally didn't see that coming. And whoa, that's a great way to wrap that up. That kept happening to me. Highs and lows the entire time. And I really appreciated how you brought all the characters together. It gave me things to kind of look back on because, grief is not something that we talk about. We kind of wait for it to hit us and then it's okay, well now how do I deal with it? But it definitely takes a lot of things to process, and like you said, coming from it was just really nice with a little
yeah.
Those moments were very, 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 very nice, and like I said, it was a really, really nice book. So do you have any more books coming so we can keep an eye out for them?
I do have a book that I'm finishing up now. So it'll probably be out in 2 years-ish.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, we'll be on the lookout.
Okay, good.
Thanks again for sharing your words and your thoughts.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? One question?
Yes.
So you're a musician, right?
Yes.
Okay, so who should I be listening to?
Ooh, see that? Do you want words or no words?
Whoever.
Is it for being
not what I'm writing. Just somebody that I probably don't know that I should know.
Oh, what is that girl's name? I think you spell it. Well, okay, old person. Alessia. She does Here. She does a song called Here, which I really like.
Okay.
Alessia. Yes, Alessia. And then her last name is Cara, Cara. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I really like her stuff. And then that's old person, and then new, her name is Ella, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but it's Mai. I really like her sound.
Okay, cool.
So yes, those are two. It's hard. That's really hard for me to pick like an artist because I'm very much so. I like this song and I like that song as opposed to like an entire album. It'll be very very rare that I find this.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Oh, I think I'm that way with people's books. I almost, it's very rare that I'm like, oh, I like all their books. I'm like, and that book and that book and that one wasn't good. But yeah.
I'm excited. My next, my big series books that I want to read are, I never read Harry Potter, so I totally want to read that one.
Oh,
And
yeah, you will.
I'm excited about it. And then Game of Thrones, because I'm a huge fan of the show, so I really want to dig into the books. So.
Yeah, well, that's a couple of years on.
Right. I got plenty to do.
You should see if he can Skype you before he dies.
Right. I'm begging. I'm asking. Like I feel like something is coming. Funny. All I know is, we better know how this whole thing ends. Or I'm gonna be
I actually don't follow it. So, yeah, I mean,
No,
everybody dies as far as I know.
Right. I was not a huge fan, but my boyfriend was like, "This show, you got to watch it."
Yeah,
and so I kept trying, and it didn't work. And so finally, he explained the characters to me, and so I was able to understand
Because
the
he's
show.
read the books.
Yes. What? No.
Or he just watched the show the whole time.
He watched the show.
Okay.
And the problem is, in the first episode, they introduced like 15 people. So it's just like, okay, well.
Right. I've seen a couple episodes, and it's just like everyone dies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood.
But I love the dragons, and so I begged for dragons. And so he got me 2 little dragons for my birthday.
Oh.
Yes, they're very, very cute. They're growing. But yes, that's kind of a glimpse into my world as well. I love it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule.
Thanks for talking to me and for eating rabbit cake.
Absolutely. I love it. Absolutely. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.